then Vaibhav Sanghvi, the co-CEO for Avendus Capital Alternate Strategies, now joins in. Hi Vaibhav, good morning. Are you feeling any GST jitters? Are you anticipating a correction in the near to medium term?
So in terms of the correction, yes, we have seen last month correcting about 2%, given that the uncertainty, going into the GST, as well as some amount of global uncertainty is definitely helping the markets calm a little at these levels and consolidate, in fact. So what we are looking essentially is basically if the market doesn't crack majorly by say about more than 2% from here, we are still continuing into that bullish momentum zone. So we will be watching out those levels. In terms of fundamentals, valuations are not something which are pretty comforting at this point in time. So we are very selective in what we take it on the long side at least.
Okay. Vaibhav, good morning. We have seen a bit of a global headwind as well over the last few days. Do you get a sense that the complacency will be taken out of the system? We have seen one-way rally in the market. Do you get a sense that we could go through maybe a 5 to 10% correction?
See, Anuj, I don't know about whether it would be about 10% or not, but definitely a correction of about 5% would be very welcome actually. More to do with the longer term health of the markets. Yes, as you rightly pointed out, there has been some amount of correction in the global markets. But I'm not too worried again on the global markets, because what we are seeing globally is that both in Europe and in US the growth is looking up. So you might see some pockets of correction there as well, more to do with more on a technical reason basis. But I don't foresee a big crack both in terms of liquidity as well in terms of the market behavior. So smaller corrections, 5% for India would be very welcome if that happens, and we would be biased probably in those kind of declines.
Well, we've seen almost 2% of that already happen from the top, Vaibhav. Now, if this 5% comes through, what do you expect will fall the most? Financials maybe? And if they do fall, then will you be buying bank stocks?
No, of course. I mean, we continue to be bullish on the private banks and housing finance companies. However, we are not so very keen on the microfinance, and that has been our long-stated position. So we would be looking some amount of opportunities in the financial space. And we also think that if the market falls, then the weaker names which have rallied, in last couple of months, more so on hope, are the space where you will see maximum amount of correction happening. So those companies, without the support of earnings or has gone multiple PE expansions, is something I would be a little cautious of. And of course the PSU banks which had rallied in last couple of months, but what is happening in the whole space is something we will probably wait, see how it folds out, and then probably will take a call on that.
Vaibhav, there was a lot of hope being built into the prices of GST beneficiaries, whether it's logistics or building products, on an anticipated shift in market share from unorganized to organized. Is it all in the price?
No, this unorganized to organized is a theme I think it will continue to play out. Yes, there would be intermittent corrections in that whole space, but that's a structural play which we think will pan over the next couple of years, not even probably a quarter or two. So we are believers of that theme. And we think that the optical valuations which are looking expensive, I think would dramatically change once GST comes into place and we see some amount of momentum happening in both in terms of the top line as well as the bottom line. So have a tab on the numbers which they are coming out in terms of for the next 2 to 3 quarters, and we'll find some amount of evidence that this is a theme which will play out over many years from here.
Okay. Discretionary consumption, Vaibhav, are you backing any stories here? We have seen quite a bit of rally over the last 6 months.
Discretionary consumption, again, we are not only discretionary consumption, I think on a consumption total basket, actually, we are very bullish, right from staples to discretionary. And in discretionary, autos is something we are, keen on, both four-wheelers and two-wheelers, but again, selective opportunities in both these segments. Apart from that, at declines, we would be looking at something on the paints, and building materials as well. So we have been bullish, but mind it, I think in this quarter and coming 2 quarters, optically the numbers will not be as good purely because the transition effect of GST. So if those numbers are weak and if we see some amount of corrections, street selling out in those pockets, we would be keenly looking at the whole space.
Vaibhav, so paints, building materials, you're looking to add there. You like housing finance companies. What about airlines? And the news that we got yesterday with one of the listed players looking at buying out the Maharaja. Good news or bad news?
Good news from the point of the government, at least. I don't know about the business side of what the acquirer, but consolidation, the airline businesses, and it somehow fits into that whole discretionary spends as well. However, the biggest variable, which is oil, is something, it's very hard to predict. So we generally, what we do is, because in the whole airline space, we are generally, we rent them rather than own them for a longer period of time, depending upon the catalyst or the shorter term or medium term catalyst available in those whole sector. Definitely consolidation is very positive in this whole space.
Vaibhav, you said if a 5% correction takes place, it will be healthy for the markets. But do you anticipate a 5% correction? What is your own assessment of Nifty levels from here on?
It's extremely tough to say, Rima, because 5%, I don't know whether, we have done with 2% already, right? Further 5% from here, it may not happen. But as an approach, what we do is basically on a monthly outlook basis, we have a view, and for the last month, we had a neutral view, which we had turned bearish mid-month. Continuing with that view probably for the next month as well, till we see some amount of correction on the markets. Now, at what point in time it stabilizes, it's extremely tough to determine. But we would be look out on the opportunities in the sectors we are liking, for sure.
Okay, Vaibhav, thanks a lot for all those sector talks and market talks.